The unshakable mind. Schopenhauer's harsh truth. You wake up every morning believing that you are chasing happiness. You work harder for a bigger paycheck. You seek recognition. You buy things that once seemed essential. You dream of a better house, a better car, the perfect relationship, a position of prestige, and for a while, you convince yourself that once you finally achieve all of it, you will discover the peace you have been searching for. But then something strange happens. You obtain exactly what you wanted, and the satisfaction fades much faster than you expected. A few days later, a new goal takes over your mind. A new desire is born. A new comparison appears. What once felt extraordinary suddenly becomes ordinary. What yesterday represented success now feels incomplete. Do you see it? Perhaps you were never running toward happiness. Perhaps you were only feeding a machine that never stops asking for more. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths Arthur Schopenhauer dared to confront. While the world promised that fulfillment could be found through endless achievement, he looked deeply into human nature and discovered something entirely different. He realized that much of our suffering does not come from what we lack, but from our inability to quiet what we desire. That idea is unsettling because it challenges almost everything we have been taught since childhood. We are taught to want more money, more influence, more beauty, more followers, more status, more victories. Almost no one teaches us to ask whether we truly need any of it. We live in a society that turns desires into necessities. Open your phone in the morning. Within minutes, someone is displaying the perfect vacation, the perfect body, the perfect family, the perfect career. Without realizing it, you begin comparing your entire life to carefully selected moments from someone else's. That is where a silent feeling of inadequacy is born. Suddenly, what you already have no longer feels enough. Gratitude quietly disappears, replaced by restlessness, not because your life has become worse, but because your desires have become greater. And there is something even more dangerous. The more we feed this mechanism, the harder it becomes to feel satisfied. Think about someone who finally buys the car they dreamed about for years. For a few weeks, they feel excitement, pride, and joy. They wash it carefully. They look back at it every time they park. It feels as though they have finally arrived. Then the months pass. The car becomes just another object. Now there is a newer model, faster, more beautiful, more expensive. The desire has simply found a new destination. The same pattern repeats everywhere. The long-awaited promotion soon becomes pressure for the next position. The dream house quickly reveals new renovations that need to be done. The perfect relationship begins to face ordinary problems. The latest smartphone loses its magic the moment a newer one appears. Nothing remains extraordinary forever. Schopenhauer observed this cycle with remarkable honesty. He believed that human beings live trapped between two equally painful states. When they cannot obtain what they desire, they suffer because of the absence. When they finally achieve it, they experience only a brief moment of relief before boredom quietly takes its place. Soon, another desire emerges, and the cycle begins again. It is like chasing the horizon. You walk for miles believing you will eventually reach it. Yet it always remains the same distance away. Perhaps you have experienced this without noticing. Think about a dream you once had. Something that once seemed absolutely essential to your happiness. Maybe it was a specific career, a certain amount of money, a relationship, recognition. Now look at your life. How much of that happiness still remains? This question is not meant to diminish your achievements. It exists to reveal a pattern. Because the problem was never your accomplishments. The problem is expecting them to fill an emptiness that belongs to your inner world. The deeper that emptiness becomes, the longer the list of desires created to hide it. And the longer the list becomes, the further away peace seems. Modern society has perfected this mechanism like no civilization before it. Companies spend billions convincing you that something is still missing. Advertising no longer sells products, it sells identities. It convinces you that wearing a certain watch will earn respect, driving a certain car will bring admiration, and living a certain lifestyle will finally make you worthy. Desire no longer arises naturally. Today, it is carefully manufactured. What is even more astonishing is that we willingly participate in the process. We work harder so we can consume more. We consume more so we can impress more. We impress more so we can feel accepted. And after all that effort, we still carry the feeling that one final piece is missing. Schopenhauer believed that very few people recognized this trap because it has no visible prison bars. There are no chains around your wrists, no locked doors. The prison exists inside the mind, where every new desire promises a freedom that never truly arrives. Perhaps that is why some of the wealthiest people in the world remain deeply unhappy, while others, possessing far less, walk through life with remarkable serenity. The difference is not simply what they own, it is the relationship they have built with what they desire. There is one question that almost no one dares to ask because the answer has the power to transform the way we live. What if the real problem has never been what is missing from your life? What if your greatest prison has always been your inability to say that what you already have is finally enough? Have you ever noticed how life seems to operate on a promise that is never fulfilled? For years, we convince ourselves that the next achievement will finally quiet the restlessness inside us. We work longer hours because we believe a higher salary will bring peace. We study harder, produce more, sacrifice time with our families, postpone simple moments of joy, and tell ourselves that all of this effort will eventually be rewarded with lasting happiness. But when the goal is finally reached, something unexpected happens. Joy arrives. It stays for a brief moment. Then, almost without warning, it disappears. Another goal immediately takes its place, as if the mind refuses to remain satisfied. Schopenhauer understood this phenomenon long before modern psychology began studying it. He realized that desire does not disappear once it is fulfilled. Instead, it simply changes its shape. It is like a fire feeding on its own fuel. The more it receives, the stronger it becomes. The more you achieve, the more it demands. That is why so many people spend decades chasing a feeling of fulfillment that always seems to remain just beyond their reach. Look at everyday life. How many times have you picked up your phone simply to check a message, only to find yourself, minutes later, comparing your life to people you may not even know? You see carefully selected photographs, success, luxury, perfect vacations, perfect bodies, celebrations, achievements. Your mind does not interpret those images as isolated moments. It unconsciously accepts them as someone else's entire reality. Without realizing it, one silent question begins to grow inside you. Why doesn't my life look like that? Comparison never creates peace. It creates hunger, a hunger that cannot be satisfied because it is not born from necessity. It is born from illusion. The irony is almost tragic. While you admire someone who seems to have everything, that very person may be looking at someone else, believing exactly the same thing. It becomes an endless chain of dissatisfaction where no one realizes they are also being envied by someone else. There is another scene that repeats itself every single day. A man comes home exhausted after work. He has spent the entire day solving problems, handling pressure, carrying responsibilities that never seem to end. As he walks through the front door, his children run toward him with smiles on their faces. But his mind never truly left the office. While eating dinner, he is already thinking about tomorrow's meeting. Before going to bed, he checks his emails one last time. He sincerely believes he is making all of these sacrifices for his family. Yet, without realizing it, he is sacrificing the very people he claims to be protecting. Years later, after finally reaching financial stability, he discovers that the moments he gave away can never be recovered. The desire to secure a better future quietly stole the present. Not because hard work is wrong, but because the pursuit never found its limit. There was always another promotion, another contract, another investment, another mountain to climb. Desire promised rest. Instead, it delivered another race. The same pattern appears in those who constantly seek approval. One compliment makes them feel confident for a few hours. One criticism destroys that confidence overnight. Why? Because their identity was built upon the opinions of others. The person who depends on applause inevitably becomes a prisoner of rejection. Freedom disappears the moment your worth depends on someone else's judgment. Schopenhauer believed that many people mistake movement for progress. They are always busy, always running, always producing. Yet very few can honestly answer one simple question: where am I actually going? There is a profound difference between moving toward a meaningful purpose and simply running because everyone else is running. When nobody stops to ask questions, every direction begins to look like the right one. Perhaps that is why so many people experience an unexpected emptiness after finally achieving what they dreamed about for years. They expected to discover a completely new version of themselves waiting on the other side of success. Instead, they found the same person, the same insecurities, the same fears, the same unanswered questions. The scenery had changed, their inner world had not. And that is where everything begins to shift. The problem was never owning possessions, building a successful career, or pursuing meaningful dreams. Schopenhauer never argued for a life of passivity or the abandonment of responsibility. What he challenged was the emotional dependence we attach to our achievements. The moment you believe you can only become whole after obtaining something, you hand your peace over to a future that does not yet exist. You stop living today because your happiness has been postponed until tomorrow. The ancient philosophers understood something our modern world has largely forgotten. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet trained his mind every day to accept the possibility of losing everything. Epictetus owned almost nothing, yet walked through life with a freedom that many emperors never experienced. Both understood a timeless truth. True wealth is not measured by what you can accumulate. It is measured by how many things you can lose without losing yourself. Perhaps the greatest irony of human existence is this: we spend our lives trying to conquer the world, while the most important battle has always been taking place inside our own minds. Because there is a quiet force capable of breaking the endless cycle of desire. A force that is born not from achievement, but from understanding. And the moment that understanding awakens, the things that once controlled your life begin to lose their power. That is precisely where Schopenhauer introduces the idea that would forever transform his philosophy and challenge everything we believe about happiness. There comes a moment when the chase finally ends. Not because you have obtained everything you ever wanted, but because you finally understand that nothing you obtain will ever be enough to fill a void that never belonged to the outside world. Perhaps this is Arthur Schopenhauer's greatest and most difficult lesson. For most of our lives, we are taught to believe that peace lies just beyond the next achievement, the next promotion, the next relationship, the next purchase, the next victory. But after spending years chasing that promise, we eventually discover that it keeps moving farther away. True freedom begins the moment you stop running after something that was never meant to be caught. Look back at your own life. How many worries that once seemed overwhelming have quietly disappeared with time? How many desires that once felt absolutely essential no longer matter today? How many sleepless nights did you spend believing that one particular achievement would finally solve everything? Life has already given you the answer. It didn't. Not because your dreams were wrong, but because no achievement possesses the power to permanently transform what exists inside your own mind. This does not mean abandoning your ambitions. It means refusing to become owned by them. There is a profound difference between possessing something and depending on it for your peace. You can dedicate yourself completely to your work without making your career your identity. You can build wealth without allowing money to determine your worth. You can deeply love another person without believing your existence depends on them. The problem was never desire itself. The problem begins when desire becomes the master of your inner world. Schopenhauer believed that serenity is not created by multiplying pleasures. It is created by reducing unnecessary needs. The fewer things you require in order to feel complete, the freer you become. It sounds simple, yet it demands a kind of courage that very few people ever develop. We live in a culture that celebrates excess. The more we accumulate, the more successful we appear. The more we display, the more valuable we seem. Very few people are encouraged to cultivate silence, simplicity, contentment, inner balance. Yet these are precisely the qualities that build an unshakable life. Perhaps your transformation begins with much smaller decisions than you imagine. The next time you feel an urgent need to buy something, wait. Give yourself a few days. Ask whether that purchase will solve a real problem or simply feed another temporary craving. The next time you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's, stop. Remember that you are comparing your entire reality to a carefully edited highlight reel. The next time you find yourself working endlessly just to prove your value, pause for a moment. Ask yourself one honest question. If nobody were watching, would I still choose this path? These questions may appear small, but they possess the power to redirect an entire life, because they return control to the only person who was ever meant to guide your existence. You. Little by little, the things that once felt urgent begin to lose their power. The need for constant approval becomes weaker. Comparison slowly releases its grip. Silence no longer feels empty. Instead, it becomes the place where you finally meet yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily reminders to ensure that nothing outside himself would govern his mind. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when we accept what we cannot control. Viktor Frankl demonstrated that even in humanity's darkest moments, every person still possesses the freedom to choose their attitude. Schopenhauer unites these timeless truths by revealing something deeply uncomfortable. Much of our suffering is not created by the world. It is created by our relationship with our own desires. We are not imprisoned only by circumstances. Very often, we are imprisoned by the things we believe we cannot live without. Now imagine waking up tomorrow without feeling the need to prove your worth to anyone. Imagine working because your purpose inspires you, not because you crave admiration. Imagine looking at everything you own with gratitude, without living in fear of losing it. Imagine building relationships based on genuine love instead of emotional dependence. This is not an impossible fantasy. It is another way of living, built one conscious decision at a time. Peace does not arrive when the world finally begins behaving according to your expectations. Peace arrives when your expectations stop controlling your inner world. That is the moment you discover that freedom was never hidden inside the next purchase, the next promotion, or the next applause. It was quietly waiting for you to recognize the difference between what is truly necessary and what merely keeps the endless cycle of desire alive. Perhaps today is the day to begin that transformation, not by abandoning your dreams, but by refusing to allow them to define who you are. Continue building, continue learning, continue growing, continue pursuing excellence, but do it because you have consciously chosen that path, not because you believe your worth depends on reaching the destination. True strength does not belong to the person who accumulates the most. It belongs to the one who remains whole, even without obtaining everything they once desired. Before you leave, I want to ask you one final question. If every desire occupying your mind disappeared for just one moment, who would you be without them? Take a moment to answer that honestly. Your answer may reveal the freedom you have been searching for your entire life. If this video changed the way you see yourself, support the channel by leaving a like. Write a comment, even anonymously if you prefer, with just one word: freedom. Or enough. Let that word become your commitment to stop allowing endless desire to control your life. And if you want to continue this journey through philosophy, self-mastery, and inner strength, subscribe to the channel and walk this path with us. Because the truth rarely offers immediate comfort, but it always offers freedom.